Hello, everyone. Hope you are all doing well. My name is Bastian, and I'm part of the Asia Pacific Rail team, and would like to welcome you to our third webinar. Today's session, we will continue on with the impact of COVID-19 on the railway industry, and we will be listening to the insights from Krish Mootoosamy from 11 out of 10 CX, who will be discussing the trends, impacts, and implications on customer experience. Before we start the session, we would like you to ask and submit your questions to the Q&A section, which you can find on the bottom of your Zoom interface. Without further ado, I would like to pass the word to Krish, who will be sharing his insights.
Hello. You all see me? Hello, how are you, everybody? Good afternoon. It's evening here in Sydney. It's 6 p.m. So thank you, Sebastian, really for the flattering introduction. Really appreciate it. First, let me tell you a little bit about 11 out of 10 and what we do. So we are a boutique consultancy. We help service organizations just put customers right at the heart of what they do. That includes listening to customers to identify what matters to them, to act on things which is close to the heart of customers, close to the heart of employees as well. Help organizations transform, design, build experiences that deliver sustainable growth for their business. Most importantly, lately, we have expanded our offering. So I'm now a homeschool teacher. So if you've got any questions around trigonometry, algebra, geography, science, you name it, I can answer it. Just shoot ahead in the Q&A section. I can see Bastian already freaking out on that call. So can you see my slides? Yep. All right, so look, this is what we have on the agenda today. First of all, we're going to cover a little bit of a snapshot of where we're at with COVID-19 to understand what's the law of the land and how things are playing out. Secondly, we're going to look at customer experience and employee experience, why they're ever more important today. We're going to be doing a short introduction of what customer experience you may or may not know. So I'm not taking any chances here. So I'm not taking any assumptions. So you may know what customer experience is all about, what employee experience is all about. So it's going to be a quick recap. And then we're going to talk about how to transform organizations to make them more customer-centric. And what does that mean for the rail industry? What sort of response is required to deal with the immediate threat of COVID-19 and what the opportunities to make things better in the future? Then we're going to look at the key trends that will guide us through this post-lockdown so we can emerge better, stronger, and pass out of this. And we're going to leave about 20 minutes for the Q&A session. So where are things at right now? The thing about as of today, 3.1 million confirmed cases, and that's not counting unconfirmed cases, like because the testing is so inadequate that you don't even know how many cases are out there in the world. And I'll just make it a point, I'm not forgetting any one of those people who are counted as dead today. 211,202 dead as of today. So that's a scary as. That the virus has exposed a lot of inequality as well in the world. So in the US, for example, in a country where you need insurance in order to be able to get treatment, if you don't have insurance, well, some people have reported that their friends and family have died, passed away because they could not afford treatment. So that's sad to hear. So lives lost on one end, on the other end, the livelihoods being upended as well. There are 27 million Americans, do you believe it, in America, lining up in dole queues and asking for unemployment benefits. The impact on the travel industry has been immense. IATA has reported 55% decline in air travel because all the airlines have literally shut down. So the impact on rail travel as well has been significant. A lot of the other day, I think that Andrew Tingay was reporting that the fact that the rail in India has closed. So how dramatic is that? So it's a huge shock, both to the lives of people, to the livelihoods of people. When we're going to emerge out of that, we don't know. So what does the law of the land look like right now? It looks like we are over the curve, not quite over. And how long is this piece of string? We don't know.
Sorry,
Now,
Chris,
what we fear is
sorry,
that we're going to have a second wave of COVID virus, which we hope is not going to happen. If ever this happens, that might coincide with the flu season, which is going to make it very difficult for us to deal with a two-headed monster. So the short of it is that we need a response plan, both for the short term and for beyond.
Sorry, Krish, we can't see your presentation. Could you share your screen?
Oh, yep. So share screen. Oh, is that better?
Yes, works. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, fantastic. You haven't missed anything. I've done the voiceover for what you have missed. So that should be okay. Can you see my presentation now? Yep. All right. So where were we? We looked at this, we looked at that. Yeah, so in this backdrop, while we're talking about customer experience, people are dying, lives are being upended. Why is it important to talk about customer experience? Well, first of all, is because in times such as these, that it is very important that our values shine through. The true values of the organization are actually revealed when in times of crisis, right? So our true purpose, what we stand for, that doesn't come more to the front and more stark in times like these. Then guys, we just cannot afford to get this wrong. We're all in this together. We're talking about employees, customers, society. My mom is 80. Sorry to make it a little bit personal, but if ever my mom and her sister, who both in their 80s, they contract this virus, they're going to struggle. So everybody's got a mom, and we all have common responsibility to act in a responsible way to help others, even if we feel that we're more protected than others. So we need actions as well that are relevant to the needs of customers to allay their fears. We need actions that help customers know that we care, that we're actually doing the right thing for them. And believe it or not, those who get this right will win the trust of customers and would likely have better retention and achieve high growth in the future. Mark my words. For the employee side, what you'll find is that what people are looking for is guidance from their leaders. What does that mean for me to be working in an organization being led by people who have similar values to me? It's very important to have trust in your leadership. There's significant changes happening in the world of work currently. Work arrangements are changing. Not only my work arrangement changing, but society, community around me, my lives are changing. How does that impact my work and what I deliver at the office? So we need to be attuned to that in order to be able to provide the right response as employers for those people that we're there to protect. The important point to make as well is that frontline employees actually are the canaries in the mine. They are the ones who have their ears closest to the ground and just to what customers are feeling and saying, and we need to be attuned to what they are saying. Organizations who get this right, they will retain talent. They will have employees who are engaged and who are going to be there in the long run for that. I like that quote from who says, employees are not there, they handle the money, but it actually is customers who pay the wages. And that quote from Richard Branson, who says, employees give you happy customers. So what, at this point, I think it's important to understand what are we talking about when we're talking about customer experience. We're talking about two things. First of all, putting the customer right in the middle of the organization. Now, if you look at what at the customer, how they experience the organization, they experience it through different channels in which they interact online via app, or they go directly in person to stores or at the train station. They experience the organization that way, and that needs to be a consistent experience. It needs to make sense. When we place that context within the broader understanding of the organization, sometimes we're handling over the customer from one end of the organization across silos, and who gets lost in the middle of all this is the customer. Between our operations, between our service, between sales, between product development, somebody gets forgotten there, and it's often the customer. So customer experience is really the art of running the whole effort of the organization, front end and back end, because it takes a whole village to deliver customer experience. It takes a whole village to raise a child. It takes a whole organization to deliver great customer experience to our customers. Equally, what does employee experience mean? Well, it really means really transforming the experience of the people who we employ, what they encounter, what they see, what they feel over the course of their employee journey with the organization, how their career can grow, and how they have the tools of trade that are available to them in order to offer the best experience for customers in the best interest of the organization. So really, you can't do customer experience without doing proper employee experience. You need to get that right before you can deliver on good customer experience. So understanding all this, we're in the middle of a crisis. Apparently, I don't speak Chinese, but I've done a little bit of research. Apparently, the word crisis in Chinese, and both Japanese and Chinese, are written with two characters. And those two characters mean two things. One, on one side, is danger, and the other one is opportunity. So the response which is required there in relation to danger is obviously to protect what we currently have. And we're going to be talking about this through this call. And secondly, how to future-proof the organization to tap into opportunities that help us deliver a better future for our organization. So before we start doing any of that, we need to get something right. We need to lay the right foundation, both at the leadership level and at the cultural level of the organization. Now, how many of you have worked in an organization where you actually have the opinion of the highest, most important person in the organization that sees the light of the day, and at the end of the day gets the upper hand of all communications that happen in the organization? Yeah. So unfortunately, if you haven't, then let me know, because I would like to work for this organization and as soon as possible. But my experience is that you need to change that mindset and develop a collaborative effort cross silos, cross functions in the organization, so that you can break silos and bring the customer right in the heart of the organization. That's one thing that is very important to do. Transform from an inside-out approach, because you don't know everything that that customers think, feel, say, and do. You need to develop, in order to be able to capture that, you need an outside-in approach. You need to understand what customers are saying, what customers are doing, and the only way to do that is actually to ask customers. We need to transform as well from careful decision-making, where we're dotting I's, we're crossing T's, and just act on sufficient data. Sometimes it's important just to act as quickly as possible in order to solve today's problem, and not otherwise you'll be solving yesterday's problem and it doesn't matter anymore. We're going to make mistakes when we go fast, and that's the reason why it's important to instill a learning culture in the organization. If you don't have that, very often organizations wait for employees to fail, and then they go pointing fingers around and looking for scapegoats, which is not very productive at the end of the day. It does not help people to take a risk and to really make a change to the organization. So what is your approach really for getting it right? Once we lay the foundation for the organization, really it's a matter of just like for COVID-19, the way that we're going about it. If you listen to Dr. Fauci, he'll be saying the same thing, eminent American doctor. First of all, you need to test, make sure that you know who are the people who contracted virus are, conduct tracing to understand where they are, where they reside, if they spread the virus around, and once you've isolated cases of the virus, you do the treatment. But customer experience works exactly in the same rational manner. We need to listen to customers, analyze, collate, analyze what they're saying, learn from what we're hearing from customers, to synthesize this information, share it with people who can actually do something on the back of this insight and information, take action, follow up in order to close the loop with customers. So what happens when we start listening to customers? What do we hear? Well, McKinsey has conducted a study across different countries in Asia. This is what they've heard from customers. Not surprising, right? The fact that people are concerned about their public and personal health, about the economy, about how long the crisis is going to last. That's nothing new. But what we need to understand is what's under anxiety, what's underlying all these concerns. This is where we need to do some further digging in order to be able to uncover that. BCG, another quite famous management consultancy firm, has actually conducted a survey of their employees to find out what the employees are feeling and saying in the light of what they are experiencing right now. And words like uncertainty, anxiety, fear, all pop up. What does that mean? How do we solve this for our people to make them feel that we're there for them and we're going to back them all the way and set them up for success as well so that they can offer the best service that they can for our people? Well, here are just some of the considerations that rail organizations might want to address. So what are you doing to keep people safe? How do you supply PPEs, protective equipment, to your people on the front line? How are you making contactless interactions possible for those people who don't need to be on the front line? Is it possible to have flexible, effective work arrangements? Is testing readily available? If anybody feels unwell, what do they do? Right, we need to know that. What are the common protocols for share tools? Sometimes you are handling a printer which has been touched by somebody else, and what is your confidence that you're not going to get a virus by sharing tools in the workplace? Is there any support for employees' well-being? Because a lot of times we're working at home, we're going through all the stress. Are you all alone in this battle, or do you feel that you've got the help of the entire organization in your back in order to be able to help you get through? What is being done to make employees' life easier, like maybe wellness, well-being courses, mindfulness courses that's being dispensed, made by online in order to help you get through the day? How will your job be impacted? What tools are being considered to make collaboration better in the workplace? I know when this virus started and there was an outbreak and everybody had to work from home in the organization that I was a client of mine at that point. Well, they didn't have a plan. So it was inadequate for people to be, of the whole organization, 4,000 of them to be all working from home at the same time. So eventually they got there, but they were caught like deers in headlights at that point in time. So what are we hearing from customers? What are they saying, feeling, and doing that we need to be mindful of, that we can help our people alleviate their feed, get better understanding of what customers are saying and doing so that they can respond better. On the customer side, not surprisingly, what are you doing to keep us safe? Social distancing rules need to be clear, contestant interaction need to be possible. Are you testing your frontline? You having your people interact with me, or have they been tested? How can I be sure that they don't carry the virus? So how do we conduct passenger screening? Are the people who will be sharing the same compartment with me on the train? Are those sanitization measures, are they being carried out in a routine and regular way to make my commute safer on the train? Well, what is being done again to make my life easier as a customer? There's enough problems that's happening in the world in order to make my life hard. So what are you doing as an organization to remove friction, to make it easier for me to interact with you, not to have to fill in forms and papers in order to get things done? So customers need to feel heard, and they need to know, you need to communicate quite clearly what are the measures that you are taking in order to help them. So next slide is, well, once you collect all this information, this is what it looks like really in customer experience. You're able to paint a picture of the entire journey. And what that helps you to do is not only understand the fact that customers are calling out that there are gaps in your policies and processes, but where it's happening. If you do not know where it's happening, it's very hard to take action. Otherwise, you'll be looking for a needle in a haystack. So it's important to understand if they're complaining about unsanitary measures, whether it's happening at the point where they're buying a ticket, or whether it's happening at the point where they're boarding the train, where they go to the bathroom, there was not enough maybe sanitizers in order to make them feel that they've been protected. So all these are very important. So how do we make sure that where customers are feeling anxious, impatient, uneasy, we are taking the right measures in order to right the wrong, in order to be able to overcome this uneasiness that they have. So it's a great tool in order to be able to help you understand where efforts need to be focused in order to improve the experience and deliver consistent channel experience. Taking action, very important. Obviously, once we know, we've heard from customers, we know where we need to focus our efforts. Now we need to make people accountable in the organization for delivering on these call outs that we've been collecting from customers. We need to have staff that is empowered. There are going to be a lot of unforeseen situations, unfortunately, that we encounter, that our people encounter on the job, and we need to be able to remove the shackles from their feet and remove the handcuffs from their hands so that they can take positive action in order to make the lives of our customers easier and more and safer, really. Wherever possible, instead of going alone and thinking about solution out of the blue and deploying them, we need to co-design this solution with customers. Very important with the customers and with our frontline, because they are the ears of our customers. Make sure that they're on board before we roll out anything. It's important to, once we hear from customers, that we go back and tell them that we've actually heard from you, and that's what we're doing on the back of the insights that we collected from you to improve the experience that you have on our public transport, and how we are making employees safer on the back of that. I like that quote from Gary Hamel, who says the only way to radically empower customers is to actually radically empower those who are closest to customers, which is your employee. So next slide. We're talking about how to future-proof. That's the second phase of the presentation today. We talk about how we're going to address the dangers that organizations face in the light of COVID virus. The second phase is really to look at how we can look at this crisis and transform ourselves in order to come out of it a little bit better, looking better. So how do we future-proof our organization? So rail, I think, is really sitting well in this current environment, because rail is a very clean mode of transport. It is potentially more cost-effective than airlines. Once you apply the social distancing rule, that airlines will be quite constrained to apply in the future world post-COVID. I think rail is really primed to take advantage of what the situation that we're enjoying right now. If you think about how there's a shutdown of the whole airline industry, that is forcing people to try rail, probably sometimes for the first time. So you're going to be having a bunch of customers who are trying rail for the very first time. If you wow them, they're going to come back. And that's what the role of your employees need to be, just to make that experience memorable for them. Now, there are 3 key trends that are picked up, which I'm going to share with you, that hope help you future-proof your industry. The first one is digital enablement. The second one is automation. The third one is how we're going to have, I think it's here to stay, a decentralized workforce. Like, some people don't have to turn up at the office all the time, like we do today, and they're going to be very comfortable telecommunicating. I think that's here to stay. Let's go through each one of them. So digital enablement. Believe it or not, this week my mom rang me. She's 80 and she's able to use WhatsApp now for the first time in her life. Not because she had to, not because she found it convenient to, because she had to. So a lot of people are having now to force themselves into learning how to use the digital technology in order to get by the day-to-day lives. So that is something which is going to transform the future world in which we live. What's going to happen is we find new ways of doing things. I look at my kids; they are learning how to dance, they're learning how to do music online, things that we never thought was possible to do before. So, really, the question for rail operators is: how can rail operators take advantage of this transformation? That how this mind shift in customers to embrace online at every step of the way, from the web booking all the way to the experience of a train, to leaving your trains with a memorable experience, all digital. How is it possible to ensure that the end-to-end experience of the customers is thoroughly understood so that we can improve it? That's the challenge. See what they've done in Moscow, actually. We're using digital technologies in order to keep people safe. So right now in Moscow, you cannot travel if you don't have a digital permit loaded on your Troika or Strata card. And this card will screen people who are 65 years and older, who've got chronic disease, illnesses. They don't allow people who are not supposed to be using public transport, like school children and students. So it is a great tool in order to protect those people who are regularly using public transport to say. So that's just one example. Those who get it right, like Alibaba did for SaaS, if you really want to predict what's going to happen in the future, you just have to look at what happened in the past. If you look at how Alibaba and JD.com rode the difficulties of the SARS epidemic in China in 2002, 2004, and how they became actual digital behemoth worth, I think each one of them about $500 billion in revenue today on the back of customers in China embracing digital channels much more avidly than they used to before. So that's going to be something that's here to stay with us. The second trend I'm going to talk about is automation. Now, automation has long been touted as a key strategy to improve efficiency, but now we see that if we apply automation right, it can actually help us deliver better protection for passengers. So you think about how you're doing screening of passengers before they come on board the train. Well, that screening can be automated, right? So, and it wouldn't cost you that much if you, instead of having one person going and test people, and what is the capacity in order to test people when there's a mass commute. If you've got screening stations which are automated, that's going to be a massive help. Digital assistance, instead of having person-to-person interfaces when people are asking for information and guidance around the train station, that's going to be a massive help as well. Automated ticketing machines to reduce passenger contact, and all of these are strategies to remove the need for passengers to come into close contact with our frontline, right? To make sure that the social distancing can be observed very carefully, and for the protection of both customers and employees. The third trend, which I think is here to stay. So you think about, if you were to tell your employer before that you're working from home, their picture is that you're watching Netflix sitting in a hammock. But this has changed. Actually, it's been proven that people actually work harder when they work from home. Because there's been a mind shift from the industrial age, we no longer look at employees clocking in and clocking out. It doesn't mean anything. It is very important to focus on what they are able to produce at the end of the day, the outputs, and more importantly, the outcomes. So that mind shift is here to stay for us. So I'm almost reaching the 40-minute mark, where I'll hand over to Bastian to conduct the Q&A session. Now, I'm just going to wrap up on the key takeaways and give you a little bit of opportunity to ask any questions. So I think the key takeaways from today's session is, one, avert danger by focusing on keeping our employees and customers and society safe. I'm talking about keeping, for example, my mom safe. Address psychological needs, because there's going to be a massive hit on people's psyche, mental, psychological well-being for this crisis. So how can we make people more safe and help build trust in the organization and in the leadership of the organization? Is very important. It's also important to look at opportunities in order to future-proof the organization that you currently work for, and a crisis will offer plenty of those, as per the three trends that we talked about today. It's very important as well, to consider just taking a lead instead of sitting behind and waiting for things to happen. If you take a lead on that, you'll be ahead, and you'll be the shining light, and people will be following. So I've got my details here. Feel free to connect via LinkedIn. Feel free to send me email, especially if you've got trigonometry or algebra problems that you want me to solve. And head over to Sebastian from there.
Thanks, Krish. If you could have a look at the Q&A section, there are a few questions for you to answer.
Yes. Okay, right. Yeah. I think the first question there was about pickup. Stimulus package are implemented worldwide to counter the impact of COVID-19. Will this measure affect spending? Am I reading this right? Yeah. Will this measure affect spending on capital projects? Well, I think how you are able to use the stimulus money may be linked to the conditions imposed by the generous governments of the day, depending on where you operate. My understanding, though, is that the stimulus money is designed first and foremost to keep people employed while you ride the storm. Once you tick that box, however, let me reiterate that if you believe there will be a tomorrow, then that's the time to get stuck into infrastructure improvement projects, because there's no better time to do it. Obviously, it's safe. If it's safe from a health point of view to do so. One, I think government should encourage further spending on capital development projects, because it keeps people in jobs, it keeps the economy ticking, Right now, debt is cheap, so if you can get the debt, get the money, then go ahead and spend it. It will help you set up for success and build in the future. And I think will provide you a head start when things pick up in the long run. Definitely sets you up for success. How go through each one? Oh, it's an excellent question here. How do you do customer listening in times of crisis when customers are already under stress? That's true. Like you think about a lot of companies that have put survey programs out there that I know of, or have put those programs on hold for the moment, because it really feels like asking a customer to fill out a form when they're drowning, if you're asking them to fill out a survey right now. So how do you then conduct customer listening? Well, I think fortunately there are other strategies that you can use in order to capture what customers are feeling. As leaders, for example, it's important to be immersed in the front line. You'll be appreciated, you'll be respected, and also get to understand what customers are feeling firsthand, what your frontline are having to put up with these days, which are very unusual situations, right? So it's best to witness it from up close and personal. I think your frontline are the ears and the eyes of the business. So don't hesitate to pick their brains. Co-design solution with them, get them involved. They'll appreciate. They'll look at it in a positive way, I'm pretty sure. And I think the other thing that you can do as well is offer an always-on approach to collecting customer feedback. So you think about, if you have digital apps, you have online portal, there should be an ability for customers to provide you unsolicited feedback. That will help you then take action, consider this feedback, and take action that are relevant to the needs of customers. Let me have a look at the questions that I have here. Thanks for the informative PowerPoint. Yep, no worries. My pleasure. How do you think we can help organizations incorporate social distancing ideas into the operations in the short term and in the midterm? I'm not an operational expert, but what I've been able to read through, what I've seen being done in the industry right now, well, for high-speed rail, for example, they are looking at assistance in order to be able to conduct, to plan the booking in such a way that then it allocates seats in a way that keeps customers apart on the train. So that's one strategy. The other strategy is to make sure that people are observing when they're queuing, for example, collecting tickets or want to tap at the gates. You need to make sure that they are observing those guidelines. Once they get into the train compartment, well, it's important then to understand how many people you have at one point in time, and they're not cramming the train compartment all in one go. So you use the digital technology in order to be able to ensure that only a number of people, finite number of people, are going to ever be able to get on train. So that is an element of an answer. Hopefully, we can further discuss these, obviously, if you're through an online chat and on the LinkedIn page. Yeah. So other question that I have here is, let me see. Yeah, so what technical innovations can improve perception of safety? That's a great question, right? So what technical innovations can improve perception of safety during a trip. I like the word perception in this question, because at the end of the day, what really matters is the perception of customers, that the customers have of our efforts in the industry. Having said that, though, first of all, it is important to work on implementing real safety measures and not only be perceived as being safe if you're not really implementing real measures. So that's the first point I want to make. But really, there are potentially maybe 3 key design principles that you need to adopt there to use digital technology, to use technological innovation to keep people safe. One is to really favor contactless technology to maintain social distancing. That's a no-brainer, right? We're talking about online booking, like in Moscow, for example. They're implementing those digital permits. If people need to print tickets, well, maybe they can use QR codes to get those printed out, and potentially implement an app for contact tracing. That's going to provide the comfort that if ever came into contact with somebody who had the virus, well, am I at risk? Also, customers tend to trust what's visible. So you need to make all these measures visible online. What communicate. Tell people what is it that you're doing. If you have a digital channel for which that you can interact and you can inform them. So that's becoming in very handy. I think the third principle I want to talk about as well is how you put customers in control. Because when you put customers in control, they feel that they can do something, they can respond to the threat which is at hand. So what does putting customers in control mean? Often it's providing maybe an always-on facility, which I talked about a little bit earlier on, to have customers report any anomaly that they have noticed when there are gaps in your safety protocol. If, for example, the sanitizer runs out in the bathroom, how is the customer able to report that out and to call that out? And also, there needs to be on the back of that, when customers have reported it, a fast response when those breaches are flagged. So I think there are heaps of opportunities there to have technology and technical innovations help us improve the perception of safety that we have during the trip. Yeah. One of the questions that I have here is, what will be the new normal for railway system? Okay, right. So look, if we look at the timeline that we have for COVID virus, and again, you know, as Dr. Fauci was saying, is that we don't make the timelines, it's the virus that makes timelines. It's anybody's guess as to how long is a piece of string there. But I think until a virus is found, or until a vaccine is found, or until the virus goes away, social distancing is here to stay. So it's something that we need to come to terms with, that we need to implement in such a way that we have that 18, 24-month time period at least in mind. So that's not going to go away, I think, in the short, medium term. What's going to help that is the fact, well, help and hinder at the same time, hinder the industry, because maybe reduce transit volumes due to fall in intention to travel. For example, over high-speed railway, over the 6 to 9 months, that's been reported. We're going to get people working from home when they do not need to turn up at work, which means that there'll be a reduction in their daily commutes to go to work. So that's going to help social distancing in an indirect way. Unfortunately, that means lower passengers, lower volume of customers on the railway. But look, it's for the good of society at the end of the day. Let me see. Any questions from you, Bastian?
Yeah, we have a question that's interesting. How do you think we can help organizations incorporate social distancing ideas into the operations in the short to midterm?
Yeah, so I think it's looking at again, it's looking at technology in order to help us do that. So if you look at what some operators are doing on their booking system, in order to make sure that they allocate seats automatically in such a way that then customers are placed far and apart on the train, that is something that will definitely help. And on a day-to-day commute, sometimes it's rudimentary strategies that work. For example, airlines are just canceling the middle seat, and that forces people to social distance on the train. I think it's clear marking. I don't know whether you guys are familiar with Lean Six Sigma, but if you look at the approaches that usually you take in order to make a manufacturing floor safe, there are markings all over to ensure people are following those guidelines. So you need to implement those markings in the train station, on the platform, where people are queuing up, in order to help people follow those guidelines. Otherwise, they wouldn't know where to stand and what to do next. And then they may put themselves at risk and put our people on the front line as well at risk. Yeah.
Okay, so great. And another one is, do you see car travel as a threat to rail on personal safety grounds, as you can travel with your own family?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly. So I was mentioning what happened during SARS when there was an outbreak. That's exactly what happened. Post SARS, there was an upsurge in people using cars in order to do short trips. But obviously, you're constrained by what distance you can travel there. So whenever you want to do short distance travel, obviously in the immediate term, I think people are going to prefer using their own mode of transport. But if we do the right thing in the rail industry to alleviate those fears, then it's going to build trust and build confidence in the minds of customers in order to embrace public transport as the preferred mode of transport. So exactly, that hopefully answers the question.
Perfect. And then maybe one more. While railway operators are losing 1 to 2 months of revenue, these organizations may need to consider cost cutting. How are other organizations dealing with these kind of losses?
Well, I think it's a fight and flight mode that most organizations are in right now. So it's undeniable, unfortunately, because if you think about passenger volumes having been in sharp fall, there are some things that don't get changed. Exactly like me at home, I keep getting bills. I don't know why, but I do. So in the same way, in an organization, there are those fixed costs that you can't make you can't make them go away. You need to address. So if you are threatened to the point where you cannot meet your fixed costs, then what you will need to do is unfortunately apply those cost cutting measures. I would say it's an opportunity as well to look at the positive side of that as well. So if you are able to invest now to build infrastructure to set you up for success, because it will come back. Definitely things will come back, just like it did in China post SARS. Set you up for success, because the rail industry has got a fantastic advantage over other public modes of transport in terms of its cost, in terms of its cleanliness, and that advantage needs to be leveraged. I think further investment into rail is something that definitely I would like to see happening more instead of the other way around.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Any further closing comments from your end?
No, look, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts. Again, they're just my thoughts. So we do not know how things are gonna unravel from here, and I think it's anybody's guess at the end of the day. So we just hope that that your family. I just hope that all you guys, your family, and your close ones stay safe, and wish we can recover as quickly as possible from this, and we'll come out stronger and better. And I think, closing comment is that maybe, yes, I think it's a time to be bold. It's a time to look at the positive side of things and see where we can tap into opportunities like digital in order to emerge out of this crisis stronger and better.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. So really appreciate your views and your insights. I really hope that the audience has been able to learn from your presentation and from your insights. As mentioned, if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to Krish directly to his LinkedIn. You can also rewatch the whole webinar on demand. It will be made available after this session. So we are also excited to announce next week's webinar. Gerald Schinagel from OBB Austria will be sharing on blockchain in railway operations. So please join the session if you're interested to learn more about infrastructure assets, blockchain-based tokenizations. He will be sharing on that. We will also be sending you an email asking for your feedback on the webinar, if we can do anything better, anything that can be improved. So it would be greatly appreciated if you could take the time to fill it in. And with that said, thanks again to Krish. Stay safe, everyone, and hopefully see you next week.
Thank you, Bastian.